This week's edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight is brought to you by Leff Atlanta Media, Atlanta's best journalist database. Subscribe at leffsatlantamedia.com. All right, welcome to the next edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight. We are talking today with DorMiya Vance with WABE Radio. Good afternoon or morning, whenever you're listening to this. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me, Mr. Mitch. I see your emails all the time about this, so I'm like, when you asked me to be on it, I was like, oh my God, I feel famous.
Well, you can just call me Mitch.
Okay.
That Mr. Mitch is, I don't know. That's what I tell the kids on the street to call me, but you can just call me Mitch. So that's all cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump right in. You have, I think is a really cool, important beat in Metro Atlanta. And I don't want to steal your fire, so you tell us what is your beat and what is your focus at WAB?
So, basically, I've had to narrow down my beats. I've been with WAB about 3 years, but overall, I'm the Southside reporter. Like that's my official title. And so, basically, any stories, basically below I-20 is like my area to cover. But I focus on like racial justice, sort of like these community aspects with arts and culture, as well as some food impact sprinkled in there, but we also have sort of like other stories that come up that might pique my interest too.
I think that's I think that's such a great area because I find that over the years that south side of Atlanta is an area that doesn't always get covered as much as it should, and there's so much going on down there. We've been working with South Fulton Arts for the last year or so on some work that they're doing down there. And there's just so many small businesses and so much innovation happening on the South Side, and great colleges and universities and all of that, and just great stories, right? Um,
Yeah.
so 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 do you? I would imagine you don't have trouble finding topics and things to talk about, do you?
No, at first it was kind of hard because like just trying to immerse myself in like the South Side because originally I'm from North Carolina. So it's like trying to move here, immerse yourself in the culture and learn about, all the aspects of Atlanta. But once I sort of got tapped in with like who I needed to, be cool with or officials or whomever, I honestly it came kind of like more naturally because it's like, you might see something pop up on social media because sometimes I get my news from social media. Other times I might be working on a story and then something else kind of comes up that like is a thread that I start to pull. That's kind of how it is right now with the list of stories I'm working on. So yeah, it's easy, but it's also like me being curious, other than sort of just watching whatever happens.
Are there kind of certain topics that you really think are important on that beat to cover?
Yeah, I think like communities for sure. Like I know like communities get covered depending on like what the situation is. I know a lot of times it's serious situations. Like I covered a community in Couch Park where some people were being forced out of their apartment. So it's more, negative, but also I think the on the other side of that community in a sense of like positive stuff. So you mentioned like South Fulton Arts. I actually did a story on them when they
Yep.
did their recent exhibit, I think. So like stuff like that, sort of like to balance everything. And I also think like some stories I do that feature Black history are very, very important because I've done a lot of stories more recently about that, like covering reparations, covering um, East Point where there was like swimming pools that closed because of segregation. That type of, history and stuff. I recently did a story on Jonesboro and their renaming of a street that basically segregated the Black and white communities. So it's like Black history also sort of comes up in the stories that I do.
Isn't that, you know, I I've heard over the years like street names are really have over the centuries have been like a key way to separate communities, right? Like what is it? It's let's see. Moreland turns into what is it on the other side of Ponce? Briarcliff? Let me
I'm
think
trying to
which way it
think.
goes.
Because
Yeah.
I'm
So
thinking about, yeah, I'm thinking about that, but I'm also thinking about one that came up and it was like I think it was like memorial or like veterans something that had to be changed So yeah, there's a couple street names that I'm thinking about in my head as we're like saying
Yeah.
it out loud.
Well, and did they change the name of like there was a I think Confederate Avenue down by the zoo that Grant Park is like, yeah, probably we probably shouldn't be calling that Confederate Avenue anymore. Yeah. So yeah, a couple of those kinds of things. Um, yeah, that's one of those, not so pretty pieces of Atlanta history that people don't really think about how the city leaders kind of divided communities by changing the name of the streets among many other things. Uh, so as you're planning, it sounds like you're doing kind of a mix of kind of kind of sort of breaking news and then kind of longer form planning. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, so well, it depends. When you say breaking news, it's not like the urgent stuff. It's more like daily news. Like
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
something sort of comes up where, for instance, like a daily story I recently did was like I covered the airport, so like airport travel. That would be sort of like a daily story because, it's ramping up for the holiday. But I do like a lot of longer form stuff. Like I recently did a pride story on this legal name change clinic with the Southern Legal Center for Youth. They're
Saw
based
that.
in College
Yeah,
Park. Yeah.
yeah.
So I get to do like these longer form stories. I think one long story that I did before that was maybe data centers, taking a look at data centers in Fayetteville, about 40 minutes south. So like really it's just a matter of like um I think like honestly I forgot the question. Sorry, let's start over.
Yeah, that's all right. We're talking about kind of breaking up your coverage between, I say breaking news, but it's more that kind
Oh
of
yeah.
harder news versus more. It's not even feature news, but it's that stories where you have a little more time to plan, and it's not like the one with the apartment people were being evicted from the apartment complex. I would consider more sometimes not necessarily breaking news, but kind of it's more of a harder news, kind of a
Hmm.
shorter turn kind of story than some of the other stories, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's thank you for bringing me back. But that's
Yeah,
exactly how
sure.
they'll describe it. Hard, like harder news versus like you said the longer form, more in-depth stuff because really like right now in my planning process, I have like an outline of all the sort of stories that I have and me and my editor go through like this is what I'm working on, this is this type of story, this is that type of story. So it's like I'll do like the harder news or dailies, depending on where I am in those projects. Because of course, like we need people to contribute, so I try not to be on projects all the time, but my newsroom really entertains my shenanigans when it comes to like these story ideas, and so I'm just running with that, honestly.
Well, no, I think it's good. And in fact, when you started and they gave you assigned you, when I heard that you were doing this beat, I thought it was just such a cool thing that the station was doing that focus. Because it's so easy to just say, okay, we're gonna have her do like general assignment all over town. Um, but it sometimes falls on, certain parts of the city, certain communities have more resources to be promoting or marketing things than others. We do some work with this Start Me program at Emory that works with micro accelerator. It's a micro accelerator business program, and they've for years they've been focused on South Atlanta, East Lake, Clarkston. They just started kind of a West Atlanta, but their idea was they wanted to give the resources and training and support to small businesses and entrepreneurs that don't have the resources or don't have the connections, don't have the contacts that others do. And sometimes it's, immigrant communities, but these people they're working hard, they're starting businesses, they're doing kind of cool and interesting things. So anyway, I come around to say that I thought I like the beat. I think it's cool. I think it's great that the station has given you the kind of the ability and the time and the bandwidth to go find these kinds of stories because it's not typical. It's not typical what a lot of media do. Even I mean, there's some newspapers that cover the South Side, but not as many as cover the North Side of town. So I like it. I like hearing those kinds of stories because it just reminds us that there's a lot of things happening in Atlanta that aren't happening in Gwinnett, Cobb, or Dunwoody, right?
Yeah, and I mean, one of, our whole shtick is amplifying Atlanta. So how can you amplify Atlanta and not amplify every part? You know what I mean?
Right,
Especially the
right.
South Side.
So, are there some kind of specific topics that you kind of have? I know it sounds like you've got a list of stories you want to do. There's certain things you're like, I really want to do this story when I have the bandwidth to get to it. What's kind of sitting there bugging you that I haven't gotten to this story yet?
Honestly, so I guess it's stories that I haven't gotten to sort of plan out yet. I think there's at least three. So one of them is there's a guy that does hip hop tours around Atlanta. And so I'm curious to sort of go on a tour with him and sort of see like how the day to day is and why it's like a hip hop tour. Like, are they going to landmarks or, that type of thing? I want to do a story on that. I also want to do a story on the graffiti art that is around the city. I think showing that side of the community and that people like you see the art, but do you know there's a scene for it? And I feel like covering that would be cool. And I think the last thing is going to be a little tricky to do because it's more of like photojournalism, but I'll make it work. But it's going to be sort of this story about the shadow archive of like the Atlanta Black history. So just a little history lesson or a little context. The shadow archive refers to like if you know like the civil rights or certain images that come up associated with the civil rights, the shadow archive is stuff you don't see. And so like photos you may not see that are mainstream that are somewhere in the archives. And so I want to sort of possibly shine a light on that, but Atlanta specific.
And and obviously you're a radio station, but you've got a web presence too. That kind of lends itself to being able to do things that are like graffiti, things that are have more of a visual component to it, where you need people to be able to see that, right?
Yeah, and so what's crazy is right now we're pushing to do more video, social media stuff. So I've been trying my hand at it, and so I kind of did a newsroom first last fall, around the election, where I did a roundtable with three mayors from the South Side, East Point, Jonesboro, and College Park. They came to the station and we shot like a 20-minute sort of roundtable about the election and like how Kamala Harris was a Black woman running for the highest position in the nation and comparing that to like these Black women that are in the highest position of these cities. And I felt like it was a good lens. And that was sort of like a first when it came to like newsroom visuals. And so I think like doing something like a photo essay and having maybe a video attached could also help because I'm also working on another video project like as we speak about some Black history stuff dealing with some legislation that recently became law. So yeah, we're trying to do more on the video, long form video type side. And so I've been sort of I don't want to say a pioneer, but somewhat of a fancy guinea pig, if you will.
That's good. They give you the time to try new things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah. Do you have a kind of an interest in kind of the political side of things, or is that just kind of one of many?
I guess one of many. I think it's probably like lower on the tiers because like I think I have more to learn when it comes to politics. Like there's a lot of nuances that I'm still working on. Like just like sometimes even with sort of like simple like the legislative session and how, it goes from the House to committee and back to committee, back to the House, then the Senate, and learning all those sort of back and forth things so I can know how to navigate it is still it's a lot. It's a lot.
You just need to buy Raul some cherry Coke, and he'll talk as long as you want.
Yeah, he's definitely insightful. He's always like, "Hey, I'm always at the Capitol, y'all are invited." And I'm like, "Listen, man, it's tough in there."
Yeah, yeah. He puts on the miles walking around the Capitol there every year. Uh, what are some of the you mentioned a couple of stories. What are some stories that really kind of resonate with you that you thought that I love doing this one, or here's a story that I thought was really important.
Um, I think that roundtable I mentioned because not only was it a video, it was also a radio piece and a digital piece, like a article. So we had sort of three parts. I think that was a story that sort of not say lit a fire under me, but I think starting with stories dealing with like when I covered the reparations task force, I did a story like at the top of 2024 about the work and studies that they're doing or have been doing. And so I think that's important work that really got me sort of more like I guess into the Black history element because that's been a conversation for a while. Like, should Black folks, African Americans, get reparations? And so I thought that was very important, especially for Georgia. Um, what else? I think another story that sort of was really, really important to me was some recent coverage that, well, technically is still ongoing about that community in College Park I mentioned because I've sort of like continued to follow this journey of one resident trying to find housing while they're on the brink of homelessness. And so for me, being able to shine a light on this person is important because this is happening all over Atlanta. Like it's common knowledge that this is happening. And so I think that was a really important story. And what else? I've done a lot of stories.
Yeah, yeah. So
uh,
I would imagine kind of as we see kind of this new uh, bill that's just passing Congress this week, that's going to probably have some impacts on the communities you cover as well, in terms of social services, Medicaid. I just was talking to the folks at Boys and Girls Clubs of Metro Atlanta today about how it can impact some, their after hours programs, and I know YMCA's probably could be impacted also. So I see that one as something that unfortunately can be, an ongoing set of
mhm.
stories for you as we see kind of what that bill does.
Yeah, and I've done a little bit of like the Medicaid coverage before everything happened. But again, like just dealing with the politics of it all, it's a learning experience. Because I'm very grassroots. So getting into the language and all that, I'm more so a person of like, let me go out here and hear these people's stories that are being impacted compared to trying to like, navigate all the bill stuff and this happened and this happened. I'm like, well, these people are dealing with this. I'm gonna handle that, and y'all handle this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's the here's what the bill says, and then there's the here's how it's really affecting people, right?
Yeah.
So you've been at the station what about 3 years now? Is that about right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So where and you were at Georgia State, right?
Well, yeah, I
Ge-
got my master's from Georgia State.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Your college was Fayetteville. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir. Yeah,
Okay.
Fayetteville State. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So, looking at kind of where you started 3 years ago and where you are now, what would you think is like, okay, here's what I've really improved at. It's kind of starting, you know, kind of your first full-time radio job, right?
Yeah. I
What,
think like the areas where like I improved because like when I came in, I was very nervous because of my accent. Like, I'm Southern and I don't want people to sort of get into their head any stereotypes about, Southern people or anything like that. And so I think that was sort of one of the I guess areas where I was like, I want to work on my tracking, not to like match what you may think is common, but just to ensure that I'm not, I just wanted to be more confident. So working on my tracking, getting more comfortable in my voice and being able to, read the scripts, I think I really improved a lot with that, as well as like my sound mixing. I feel like, or, my audio mixing, I feel like I've always had sort of like a musical background as far as like, I was in band, I was always very in tune with music, still very in tune with music. And so I think
band
what
kid, band kid. I was a band kid.
yeah, like it seemed like all the band kids. But yeah, it's like and being immersed in sort of that more creative, you know, musical sort of I think it's like the right hemisphere of your brain
Right, right.
thing.
Yeah.
And so I think like I'm very right hemisphere. And so like when it came to like adjusting to like writing for radio, because I come from a print background, so I'm very long-winded. So when it came to like becoming more concise, getting scripts down to a certain time, I improved a lot on that. Like right now, I can sort of like eyeball how long a story is when I write it. So it's like I've improved from like, I don't know, the time range to like, okay, this many,
Yeah.
this many lines means 2 minutes. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Okay. Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's good. It's
And
good.
then yeah, and so just, fixing my sound, and getting really good at that. Like I don't want to say like I have like the best sound in the newsroom, but I did win an award for best use of sound with the press club, Atlanta Press Club.
Awards of excellence, right?
Yeah, yes
Yeah.
sir.
I was there that night. That was a, you guys took home a couple that night, if I recall.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
probably rushed out because there was a concert that same night.
That's right. That's right. I remember everybody saying, who was it? Was it
Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick? Was a kid? Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember there were a couple, I mean, Mike Jordan was like, I gotta go to the concert. There were a couple of folks, he was emceeing. I was like, dude, you got to stay until the end. You're the MC.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's funny. I mean, I was, I, you can the good folks in radio understand how to kind of insert sound other than just sound bites in their own voices to make the story more interesting. I was doing some a couple years ago. I was listening to some radio award entries, and I was struck by how little if they any of them did in terms of adding any extra sound in. Even in terms even in terms of adding like some background sound or some sound effects or sound that made sense for the story, story about police, add a siren in or that kind of thing, just to make it more interesting. And I was asking some of the folks, and they're like, yeah, we don't have the budget or the time to add that in. But it's like, yeah, but it didn't seem like it takes that much time to add a little bit of sound in just to make your story sing a little bit more, just to get people's attention. Otherwise it's all kind of the same level, right? You get the
Hmm.
anchors and reporters talking, and you don't get anything that kind of grabs your attention. Um,
Hmm.
we do this big construction expo for one of our clients every year, and every year I'll go in and just take my phone and just record some sound of, saws and hammers and, all the sounds of construction that are happening all around this expo. And I'll share that with the radio folks. Just, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, I can't make it down there, but I can do a phone interview. Like, okay, do the phone interview with the client, and then I'll send you the sound. And it just sounds so much more interesting when they add that in there. It just makes the story more fun.
Yeah, like I really love playing around with sound, and I think like I'm always pushed to take my sound further. Like again, like I've really like because I'm very particular, because I'm also like neurodivergent. So it's like when it comes to certain things, I want it to be just right. If it's all like I can tell when it's off. Like you should see me in here when I mix. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. And it could be the slightest thing. So it's like me being pushed to sort of like recognize those things and be more crisp and add those layers because like I really like playing around with sound and I try to do my best to, get ambi, get effect, effects that would make the sound like make the story sound as if you're in it. You know what I mean? That's sort of like my big thing when it comes to like my features, longer form stories. Like I really in my head I'm already like thinking about okay, how would this sound? How can I
Right.
place this? Yeah.
Yeah, because you want to be thinking from the listener's perspective. How are they not just how am I giving this to them, but how are they receiving it? And you want them to, you want the sound to create a mental picture in their head of where you are. So, your description of the location combined with the sound, really I think adds to that when you're creating that. I don't know, I guess you can call it like an audio experience, right?
Yeah, an immersive sound experience.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, so but I enjoy like playing around with sound a lot. Like I get high marks on my sound, but again, like I try not to like be flashy. Like I'm very like I'm just in my own world. I'm taking the notes and applying them. Like I'm very grateful to just have the supportive environment of WABE, honestly.
Yeah, and I know that they've uh, they've been supportive of you. Susanna Capelouto says great things about you.
Yeah, I miss her a lot. She was initially my boss before she went to NPR.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so I'm going to ask you the hard question now. That's people always I don't want to say it stumps people, but what's something cool or fun about you that people might not know? And that could be a hobby or a certain talent or things you collect. Something cool about DorMiya.
So as I mentioned before, I'm neurodivergent, so it's like I have very specific interests. And so one of my main interests is horror. So horror movies, horror TV shows, anything that is gore, grotesque, anything. I'm very much into it. One of my favorite franchises when it comes to horror is the Saw franchise. I even have a tattoo here, of a puzzle piece, if you can
Oh,
see it.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. But it's one of my favorite franchises. I really, really enjoy horror and I guess like just a little sprinkle. I collect plushies, so like stuffed animals, but cool ones, like not just anything.
Stuffed animals that are kind of cut in half by horrible killers or something like that. Yeah,
Possibly.
maybe,
I
maybe,
have like,
maybe.
yeah, I have like, I think I have like two like Saw dolls, like little
Yeah.
plushy dolls. So possibly, yeah.
All right. Okay. So the next couple of questions is kind of a lightning round. Um, so these are don't have to get too deep into these. So I'll give you an option of last book you've read or the last podcast you've listened to.
I'll go with last book I read. Um, Technically, I'm still reading it, but it's called The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, and it's basically historical fiction about the Underground Railroad, and it focuses on the stories of different slaves and their progress throughout sort of like that era, and sort of how they move from city to city, when it comes to like, traveling to freedom, basically.
Yeah. Favorite local restaurant.
Ooh, that's a good one. Who want a pho? It's a it's a pho restaurant. So pho is an Asian noodle soup.
Yeah. Okay, tell me the name of it again.
Who wanna pho? It's like a
Oh, I have
pun.
heard of that. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to check out the spelling of that one so I don't miss that one. All right. Favorite guilty pleasure.
Ooh. Oh my God, these are really good questions. What are my guilty pleasure? Nerd clusters.
Nerd clusters.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I had like a really big family size pack of nerd clusters, and I think I ate all of them in a matter of maybe 2, 3 hours. So, very much guilty pleasure, very much into that. Will definitely work for nerds if possible.
Oh, that sounds like a t-shirt. Will work for nerds. All right. Favorite local getaway. And that could be Georgia. Doesn't have to be like Metro Atlanta.
Mm, Favorite getaway. Honestly, I haven't done a lot of traveling around Georgia yet. So I would say as far as like maybe like College Park, even though it's like relatively close, but I've been in that city and the energy there is nice. So maybe College Park, East Point,
All
those
right.
areas. Yeah.
All right. And then the last one is favorite non-work hobby.
Non-work hobby.
Is there such a thing? Is there a non-work time? Do you not is
I mean, I feel like I'm always like on call in a way. Let's see, favorite non-work hobby. I think journaling. I journal a lot. I take care of my mental health. I'm in therapy, so I think journaling, whether that's like just writing entries or junk journaling, I keep like
right?
mementos of things I do and put it in a journal. So I would say journaling.
So is that like a is that writing or is that kind of a combination of writing and like physical things that you put in the journal?
It's a combination. So I need to get a additional journal for some of the stuff, but depending on how I feel that day, I might do like a spread of the stuff I've collected and then write, an entry beside it. It just depends on how I feel that day.
Yeah. Cool, cool. All right. Any kind of I always like to ask this question, any kind of nonprofits or groups that you really like that you support or like to advocate for? Like not either nonprofits or kind of organizations around town.
WABE. Um,
There you go.
so, support public media because we need that. We need that, especially right now. I would say WABE, NPR. Those are very much the nonprofits that I would definitely put on the platform right now because again, like I work for public media and I want to be able to tell the stories that I tell because they're very important. And so again, like with the attack sort of being on them or us, it's important to make sure people know like we're here and support us like 100%, support public radio.
That's good. Uh, and oh, let's make sure tell people. See, website address is
WABE.org/DorMiya Vance.
there. You go. Okay, you don't need to go to that Roe Bali page. Just go to DorMiya's page. And then and your email if folks want to get in touch with you.
D Vance VANCE at WABE.org.
Okay, cool, cool. And we'll put that in the notes, and I usually do a little graphic at the bottom so people know where to find you. We have been talking with DorMiya Vance. Thank you, DorMiya. Great conversation. Really appreciate taking some time on this. Well, whenever this airs, but we did it on the almost on the holiday weekend. So there we go. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
I really appreciate it. And I'm like, I can call you Mitch, but I'm over here like Mr. Mitch because of my manners. But
Okay,
thank you so much
that's all right.
for having me. Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Mitch. And I really appreciate, you taking the time to do this. Like, I'm honored. I'm honored.
Well, good. Well, I'm appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, I think you've got a really cool job and a really cool beat, and I hope they let you keep doing that for a long time. You
Same
hear
here.
that? You hear that, WABE people? Let her keep doing this for a long, long time. There we go.
I
All right.
appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. And as always, you can find our archive of Four Questions Journalist Spotlights on YouTube in the video form, or in the audio format. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can find audio podcasts, you can find our podcast. So share it around and click the subscribe button and all of those things. And as always, if you want to get to our database of Atlanta media, go to Leff's Atlanta. There it is, back behind me there, leffsatlantamedia.com, where you can find information and contact information for all the great journalists around Metro Atlanta. And with that, we will see everyone in 2 weeks.